close. It was a decent showing, wasn't it, or no?
Yeah, she, has like 15 people in that,
We're by the
in the
way, I'm sorry
primary
I hit
field.
that as I was setting up my internet connection, so
Oh, no, 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 you're good. It was pretty good. There were like 15 people in that primary,
yeah.
so, there was a couple of candidates that had a I can't remember the organization off the top of my head, and, part of the deal was that they would all drop out if the other one, like, whoever was, you know, in the lead during a certain, and they didn't.
They
It
just decided, "No, I'm not
Yeah,
getting out
just
now."
running and thought, "Well, that's an odd," because you've got essentially all the polling was showing the top 3 kind of all in there, and then you got a lot of people in the 1 to 5% range that just stuck with it, so, uh, kind of split some votes. So, yeah, it was she with, like, 27%, he won with, like, 29.4 or something like that, so it's pretty tight, but, um, yeah, interesting, Chicago politics I've found is very interesting, like, Illinois across the board is a very interesting group up there, so,
What were your takeaways?
uh
It's kind of a mixed bag, wasn't it?
yeah, Kat was very that super progressive candidate, so, the guy that won, Daniel Biss, very institutional Democrat, um, traditional, usual donors, very corporate PAC kinda guy, so, uh, I I kind of expected more of a progressive shift. I guess there is some. I mean, she did really well, but I kinda thought she would win based on, what we had seen, but again, with it being Illinois and them having kind of um Illinois kinda has this, system they've got a lot of corruption and stuff in politics there, and their democratic norms are a little shifted to the right a little bit.
Yeah.
So, to say the least. So, it may not be um, it may not be as, um, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reflective, representative?
Yeah, it may not be as representative uh, of the country as a whole. It may not be as much of a proxy as I'd like it to be, but
Well, what about, I
that's
mean,
their
Texas?
thoughts.
Texas, Tallarico beats Crockett pretty good, right?
Yeah, which, I mean, to me, Tallarico is more progressive than Crockett, so, I mean,
Okay.
um,
So
I mean, kind of do you not agree that he's a more progressive candidate than
I mean, I guess, it's probably more tone, right? Which I was fascinated by that race for a lot of reasons. She was much more strident in the bombastic sort of way, which is what I think the temperament right now of the Democratic Party seems to be. The Gavin Newsom, take it to them, take the fights to them. That was Crockett was a little bit more smash mouth politics. Tallarico's, whole tagline is meeting our enemies with an open hand rather than a closed fist.
Mhm.
It's not that he's not a fighter, it's just a different style. And I don't know, we're seeing like in California, Swalwell's really kind of starting to break out of the pack and lead in more polling. And he's very much that tip of the spear, very anti-Trump, and that's kind of what's moving his numbers. So I don't know if these are policy differences. I could be wrong. I could be
Yeah,
wrong. And even where they are, they don't seem terribly consequential. I think there's just some very interesting stylistic differences.
yeah.
Um,
That's probably closer to true. I don't think that there is, a nickel's worth of difference really between Tallarico and Crockett from a
yeah,
policy perspective.
yeah.
Um, so maybe it is sort of just feel, to me, who feels a little more one way or the other. Because, you're right. I mean, from a policy stance, there's not a lot of difference. Um, So yeah, who are you liking um, in in uh in the governor's race out there? You think Swalwell takes it?
Yeah, I think Swalwell is gonna start consolidating the field. I mean, I am really interested and perplexed in the fact that, Tom Steyer, this billionaire, is you can buy a lot of support. It's really not, it's kinda like German Hessian support in the Revolutionary War. It's not really deep, right?
Sure. Yeah,
But
yeah,
you can buy it with name recognition. I'm just really confounded by the fact that I've been watching and reading polling data for the better part of, 10 years now on these voters, and they're saying they hate billionaires, and yet they're supporting a billionaire. Like,
mhm,
it just I don't get it, and and a lot of labor unions. Now, he's promised them a lot of money for their ballot measure priorities, but the optics are just unbelievably bad with, working families and real union members. They don't support a billionaire. It's their kind of their leadership does.
mhm,
And that same schism that we're seeing certainly in the Republican Party that consumed it, that is now this sort of establishment Democrats versus the base of the party is wider than I've ever seen it. And now you're seeing it in labor too. There's just like this old way of doing politics that is consumed by money, whether it's corporations or billionaires, and the rank and file that's just kind of had it with all of them. So I don't. I'm intrigued by the whole billionaire movement in the Democratic Party. Like, are they going to pick a Donald Trump's type figure to be their populist champion too? Like, is that what they're gonna do? I don't know. I don't know. But I think that if the people that are saying from the polling that I've been looking at, the people that are saying they want a fighter against Trump and what's going on, Swalwell is hands down kind of the lead there. The
yeah.
question is, with 16 candidates, 20 candidates or whatever, can they consolidate a message pretty quick? And it seems like in predictable order as we get closer, Swalwell is starting to consolidate the base more, and he's moving up in most polls.
That's it's actually surprising to me. I thought he would kinda go the opposite way. I thought Swalwell would lose support, as it got closer to, November.
How
So,
come? Tell me why.
uh,
Well, June. Our primary is June, right?
yeah, so I just felt like, I thought him being in California so much, during the session was gonna hurt him.
Oh, not being there for votes.
Yeah, I if California's always felt like a and, I could be wrong, you might be able to correct me on this. Uh, California has always felt like people wanted like, people to do the work, wanted that a lot of that not being there to do the job was not gonna fly very well, but, um, I don't um, just the expectations were higher on representation. Um So I really thought that was gonna hurt him a lot, uh, and it hasn't, so that surprised me. Um, I didn't think he had a strong message. I thought he was kind of milquetoast, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so,
Who do
again,
you
just
who do you
just
like?
surprising.
Who do you like in the race?
At this point, Swalwell, I guess. I don't have anybody that I think stands out, to be honest.
I think that's the Democratic field. Like,
Yeah.
it was just like this is a state that should have three
Yeah,
future presidential,
sure.
aspirants, and it's kind of like no, there's 20 people in, might as well get another 20 in. I don't know
Yeah.
who they are. It's very wild, very peculiar.
I really expected Roe, to run this year. I mean, he's not not going to. I don't know if I don't know if he's gonna skip the whole governor thing and go straight for president. I think it's
I think
probably gonna be his
I
path.
I think that's why he's not running for governor. He has, as I've shared with you, Ro Khanna has, I think, a very unique way to come up with policy solutions. It's not like he's just pulling them out of thin air. He's a very thoughtful guy
Sure.
who's thought about this, I think, deeply and has these unique policy solutions to the digital age that our old tools don't work for. He's like reinventing tools and policy prescriptions, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't whether I agree with him or not. I don't even know if I agree with him. It's just he's putting stuff out there that I hadn't thought about, and I appreciate that from a policymaker. Like, I want somebody who's thinking about these things and, and I don't find myself going, "Oh, that works or that doesn't," historically. It's I find myself when he's talking about these ideas, more asking questions like, "That's a fascinating approach.
Yeah.
That hadn't occurred to me," and that's refreshing.
I the and I'll even go a little more simpler with it. I just like the fact that he is constantly addressing issues. And whether it it's a sad day whenever you're impressed by somebody that's just willing to address the issue, much less that they have a good policy, and I think Roe has both of those things, but he doesn't shy away from an issue or a concern, he does attack it, um, and,
You
I
you know
I do think he is kind of, he does bring a new system of thought to it, not a new idea that, we can, uh we can kind of break through some of these things. We just got to work through it. And he works a lot with Massey and stuff, and I can appreciate anybody that's willing to uh, step across the aisle and try to get the work done. But I think a lot of that's on Massey too. I think Massey is similar in that he's willing to think through the problems. Um, so yeah, I think Massey's probably the closest thing we have to a traditional conservative, if there's any of that left.
you will appreciate this. Yesterday morning, I got an invitation from Oxford Union to debate, to go to Oxford to debate at the famous Oxford Hall, the question of whether or not Trump has betrayed conservatism, which is
Oh,
coming.
yeah.
I think at the
That's
end of May, I'll be putting on a tuxedo and heading out there. And you know what I'm talking about, right? It's where Charlie Kirk was there and did his
yeah.
thing and
Yeah,
Kevin
yeah, yeah.
McCarthy. And so I got this invitation. I was like, yeah. I mean, I responded so quickly. I think they were shocked, a little over eager there. How embarrassing. I was like, yes, I'll go, whatever it is. I'll cancel everything. I'll be there.
The whole message hasn't quite downloaded yet.
Yeah, exactly. A little embarrassing. They're like, "Well, that
Yeah,
was a fast response."
eh,
But I only bring it up because that's exactly the question of what conservatism is anymore. Like you said, Massey is a classical conservative. He's holding true to it. Don't have to agree with the guy at all, but at least he's consistent and principled about it when nobody else is. Like in the whole town, it's like, "Who are you people? What body snatchers got to you guys?"
what
So,
that's gonna be great. I look forward to seeing that.
yeah.
Mm, because you and I have talked about it. I don't know that there is any conservatism left.
No, and
Well,
I
certainly not in its Burkean,
no.
form. So I don't, whatever Trump is, I don't, I don't know what we call it, but it's not.
That seems to me to be the easiest point of defense is even if I can't defend what's happened to conservatism, and I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to explain and understand it. But whatever Trump is, it is not that because there's nothing coherent about what Trump is. I don't know what it is. Trump doesn't know what it is. No one knows what it is. So we'll see. But I may be calling you offline to help you get me into fighting shape.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Yeah.
I what
Starting
a what a great what a great topic.
It's a great topic, and they obviously put a lot into it, and kind of went through quotes I've had in various news outlets and the Lincoln Project stuff, and they were like, "We think you'd be a great addition to this debate. Would you be interested in coming to Oxford Union?" And I was like, yes, yes, I will be
Yeah.
there.
Oh, date and time. I will start
Yeah,
looking. Uh,
whenever I got to start walking now, I'll start walking now.
what's the so have they picked the are you're defending the conservative stance or
No, my argument will be I will be debating. I will be saying that Trump has betrayed the conservative movement.
okay, cool.
He has betrayed conservatism. Um, and I'm not too sure who else I think they usually bring like 4 on each side or something.
Yeah. That's gonna be
So,
great, Mike. I look
yeah,
forward
so
to hearing that.
get to spiff up and put on a tux and get out to Oxford and have tea and debate.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Uh I
Not bad
I
for a poor Mexican kid from Southern
I tell you,
California. Yeah.
I I don't even know what I would, not to jump into it, but I think I don't even know what I would consider. Trump feels just opportunistic. I don't know if it's even populist anymore. Just whatever serves him at the time. That's what he is. Uh,
Transactional.
yeah, there it is.
That's
It's not.
how much are you paying Don Jr. in meme coins to bomb whoever? That's all we
Yeah.
really care about.
Uh,
Can I get the land rights to Gaza, land rights to Havana? Can we get, what kind of where can we put a hotel in Greenland?
where do you think this Iran thing ends?
I I'm gonna ask you. I don't know how it can end anymore. Like let's assume, Robert, he gets religion and says this was a mess. I made a mistake. We know that's never gonna happen, but sake of argument, we're pulling out. Aircraft carriers are out. No more missiles. Israel, you're on your own. We're out. The whole region's been destabilized.
Mhm.
Like you can't just leave now. It's already too late. So, and you can't leave Israel to their own devices because then you're probably talking a tactical nuclear strike, for goodness sake. So, I don't think there's a way out. I mean, is there? I mean, I don't. I want your opinion. I don't know.
I don't think there's a. I, I, I don't think that there's a moral. Uh, once you, we have to reckon with the idea, like we're already in it, right? So the idea that we can just say, well, we never should have been there is kind of off the table. Um, if you do just leave, I don't, or you don't send the troops. If you say, hey, we're not bombing anymore, you have destabilized a region that there is, um, there is this overwhelming sense of we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. Like we have no plan. There's no, um, and to me, that's the most concerning part. If there were a, I guess in the back of your mind, you always kind of knew he was going to do something. Like he was, Israel's gonna, they want Iran, they want Libya, they want, um, their approach is that they need these, Israeli approach is that they need these certain areas of land for, because they're all these imminent threats. Well, there can't be that many imminent threats. Like it doesn't. You will have people that oppose you, but there's not that many imminent threats that you have to be on an offensive constantly. Because you're just creating more imminent threats as you bomb schools and townships and stuff, and then demand that people evacuate so that you can occupy. Like that, you're going to just create more imminent threats. That's the nature of imperialism. So I think if we would do something where we pulled back and we withdrew our support uh, of that Israeli kind of takeover, we might start to see a little bit of a shift, but we're not going to do that. So we're left, the vacuum that we leave when we pull out will do the same thing that it did post Afghanistan or post Iraq. Or that you're going to have another group that takes over that hates the United States and will give you another reason to have another war in 15 years or whatever it is. You're just giving yourself that. When we left Afghanistan in the 80s, if we would have rebuilt that infrastructure the way we were supposed to, um, the way Charlie Wilson said we should, even though, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. Um, but we didn't. And then we didn't learn from that. We didn't learn in Iraq. We didn't learn it in Libya. We didn't learn it in Syria. We just don't do the thing.
Learn, yeah.
And so I don't know what a tactical withdrawal looks like. But tactical is out the window. Those guys, you will never convince me that Pete Hegseth has any say whatsoever in what happens. He just says crazy shit, and then people have to clean up the rhetoric, he he came out day 1 and said that it was regime change and a war, and then you have, uh, Congress people have to come out and say, "Well, it's not a war." Well, when the Secretary of War or whatever he's calling himself comes out and calls it a war, it's hard to defend the other side of it. Um, I don't know, I it doesn't end quickly. I don't know if it takes us through November, if it takes us through the summer. Um, the exit strategy just isn't apparent, and when you don't know what the goals are, and when they don't know what the goals are, um, it
I don't think it's a weeks or months long thing. I think it's a years long thing. I think we're back into the
always
Middle
says,
Eastern quagmire.
it's an 8 or 10-year war.
It's another 10-year war, and it's gonna be even more expensive in terms of treasure than the last one, and, it's gonna cost, obviously, American lives, but the stakes are higher, and part of what we were trying to do, I think, was demonstrate this American bravado, but if the Iranians do start requiring the transaction of the limited oil they're putting out to the Chinese in yuan instead of dollars, we've lost the war. It will do such damage to our economy. Just that, not even the spend, by the way, which is $1 billion a day. By the
Right.
way, if we spent, they keep talking, they're talking about this during the Biden stuff, pulling out, what about homeless veterans? We could have given each homeless veteran in the United States $350,000 for a house at this point. Just a check, buy them a house with what we have spent in the Iran conflict war over the last 3 weeks.
Mhm.
$1 billion a day, Robert. A day.
Uh, and we can't I mean, that's universal health care,
Yeah.
um, I mean, that twice over, I think.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
absurd. It's I don't and the bravado thing, I think, there's probably a lot of, there's something to that. I I I think that we've already lost it. I know the dollar's up a little bit because oil prices are up, and that's that's the petrodollar right now is the dollar. Um, but if nothing else, it will force the hand of, it'll speed up the BRICS plan for currency, and not tomorrow, but in the next year, in the coming years, it'll be a lot sooner than it would be. I We get, I think, 1%, I think it's something of our oil comes through there, so it's not a huge deal for us, so the it it does speed up the idea of trading it in the euro or whatever else really Iran in that region decides they wanna do. Um, Israel struck a strategic oil site this morning.
They
Um,
did.
yeah, um, in Iran, and Iran has already um, sent messaging that all of the OPEC nations should evacuate their oil refineries and their production sites. They're gonna strike it. It's going to it costs me $92. I drive a Jeep Wrangler. Like, it cost me $92 to fill up my Jeep today, and a week ago, it'd have been, like, 52. Um, so, I mean, I think we see $5, $6 gas probably in Central America, like Heartland, Central I mean, Arkansas, Oklahoma,
Yeah, yeah, the Heartland. Yeah, yeah, I know what
where
you
we
mean.
don't, where we
Yep.
don't see $5 gas, $6 gas.
Yeah, we see that in California. But yeah, yeah, which means California is gonna be 10, $12 a gallon. Uh,
Which is pr and there's but the far-reaching implications of that are, at what point do people decide, "Hey, we do need to to roll back some of these taxes and things in California, the clean air stuff in LA, and now you go back to having a smog problem, in no time because people simply can't afford $10 a gallon gas.
That's exactly
Uh,
right.
and so now you have these environmental concerns and you lose this thing that people in California have worked a long time to have. Um, and all of a sudden that's gone because, uh, I mean, you do have to decide what do you want to do? Do you want to, you know, it sometimes it's not always the easy, clean answer to that question.
That's certainly not one of them. That's a tough question. That's a tough policy decision because, yeah, I mean, the economy starts to shut down. It starts to seize up like an engine. And if you start having $10 gallon gas, I mean, working people can't afford it, literally can't afford it. And so what happens? You start to, yeah, the air, you can start to see the air suddenly and you can feel it like syrup in your lungs. And that's the choice. Either people are going to quit paying rent and starve, lose their jobs, or get sick because of the air.
I mean, I can't even think I haven't been to California in a long time, not regularly, but, I remember the first act probably 20 years ago, and I went to LA, and when I got home thinking, "Oh, it's like I can see in high definition between just leaving LA and coming back to Arkansas," and now um, not a problem. You don't there's no smog warnings on TV or, it's almost a forgotten thing, um, which could be problematic whenever they start talking about how do we reduce some of these, you know, gas prices and I don't, uh, I think that we've already done a good portion of the damage, we just haven't seen the full, um we haven't seen the full effects yet, and I think it's just gonna continue to pile on, um, if they invade the Carg Island there, Mike, I don't know. You put 4,000 Marines, um, and uh, uh, we lose military members, you know, for what? It's not a it's not a necessity. Um, there's no part of this that needed to happen. Um, it I don't even think it's defensible from a Republican stance. You either destroyed their ability to make weapons or you didn't in this, last year.
Obliterated it.
Your your intelligence community is either good and knows what's going on or they don't, and all of a sudden they snuck up behind you and have these military capabilities that nobody ever saw coming. Um, so which is it? It it's an indefensible stance. And it's expensive. Nobody wanted it, except for Netanyahu, I think. And it feels more and more like this administration is being, kinda dog walked by that administration, and when you have a guy that's only interested in personal wealth building, you leave all the foreign policy to another nation, it's you end up in in a senseless war that's gonna last, um, forever, and we are not only are we fighting our own here, we also are uh, we are supplying the arms and a good bit of the funding to the other country involved and that's fighting on other fronts. It's ridiculous.
That there's no, I mean, there was obviously no imminent threat. There was no imperative to move, certainly at this level in this direction, but there's also no objective. There's no definition of what success is. Not even like a quadrant. like,
Right.
there's not even like a general direction. It's just kind of catch as catch can. And so there's I don't know. I don't it's not as simple as saying, let's just declare victory and pull out and say, okay, we're done. What we came to do, we've done here. Like that's not really possible at this point. And cutting our losses to, that just the region's so destabilized now. I don't Iran's not gonna just be like, "Okay, well, go ahead, it's over." Like, that's it's gone. That's gone. There's every incentive now for Iran, even if it was to really bring back all of its production capacity and shipping, infrastructure, bring it online to get off the dollar as quickly as possible. And that's the dominoes start to fall.
The worst thing that you can do is to show, if we wanna call Iran our enemy or whatever, it's what you saw in Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine saw success. There was no reason for them to back down. Iran is seeing their tactics be successful. What's the Once you take away any reason for them to you take all the negotiation, uh, um, all your negotiation space off the table, what do you expect them to do? Um, you've already shown that you are willing to decapitate leadership. Um, I don't know what the how you expect the next leadership to behave or react. I mean, and then you have Kent resigning today, saying, you know, this, when you have a guy that's that pro Trump for his entire career, stepping down, and then Trump did the Trump thing where he said, "Oh, this guy was terrible anyway. He was going to get fired and whatever." It's like, what? Either you are terrible at picking leadership, which is, you know, it, I do think that the house of cards starts to fall on this. I think he's gonna let Bondi go down on the Epstein thing, and um, I think she's got a hearing. I think in mid-April, April 14th or something. I mean, she's gonna be replaced, removed. And I mean, she has to know it. I mean, why would you not just roll over on that guy?
I I mean, in many ways, I maybe Bondi just hangs in there.
Um,
Are they gonna get rid of her? They're gonna impeach her? Maybe. I mean, are those votes there? Maybe. But, like, you're not gonna get somebody better. They're just better in terms of being just a blind rollover, loyalist.
well, the assistant AG, I think Bondi's gone, and he moves his, I forget his guy's name at this point.
Move the chains down the
Yeah.
field. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so we'll see. But I mean, that's the playbook, though.
yeah.
It's not even surprising. You either do exactly what he says, you end up getting fired because it's illegal and, whatever, or you don't and he fires you for not doing it. So, I mean, which one do you hold on to? Um, I guess whichever one holds you keeps you that paycheck coming for a while, but
But the paycheck's not even that big. It's
it's,
like, if you're gonna sell out your soul and your country, at least get paid.
but what's Christy Nome gonna do? What's her next role when she quits? I mean, she's qualified to do exactly nothing. Um,
I mean, lobby, I guess.
yeah, but I don't know how strong that lobby is after this is over.
Well,
It's
that's what it's all
the
based
most.
off. That's what it's all based off of, right? After it's all over.
I
When
think.
it ends. When it all ends, I mean, ideally, it all goes away, right? And that's when everybody starts claiming they were never MAGA. They weren't really with Trump. We're just, an access firm that knows everybody.
Mhm.
When these guys are the ones that were goose stepping the whole damn thing down the plank. I you know, I and Ma Those MAGA guys survived during the Biden years, like, like roaches out of the shadows. I knew a bunch of them. They were moving up in partnership at big firms, and, I mean, I think that had something to do with the Republicans in Congress, obviously, especially after the midterms, but it's not it's part of this stuff just ain't gonna go away.
I they'll just change their viewpoint. They'll just adapt to whatever the new popular thing is, whether it's Carlson and Green, or eh, the neocon thing or whoever is popular. Uh, I think they are probably gonna with his I think they're gonna probably set Rubio up to be the next guy instead of Vance. Vance isn't showing up nearly as often as he was. He's been a lot quieter. Um, so I think maybe they're figuring out that he is terribly unlikable, and I hate to say that Rubio is smart. I don't mean it. I think he's the most serious
Clever.
of a
Yeah.
group of non-serious people,
Yeah.
uh, and has somewhat of a pedigree pre-Trump. I mean, he, um, I think he had a good shot uh, in 16. Um,
I
and
was
it,
with I was with
so,
Rubio on 16.
um, it- I don't think Rubio is a fool, um, but I think he certainly sold his soul to be there.
That's what makes him dangerous. He's not a
Yeah,
fool. He knows what he's doing consciously.
yeah.
He that's what he's doing. But do you think we take Cuba this year? Take Cuba?
What's left to take? They don't have a energy infrastructure is gone. Um, I think that there is. I think it'll depend on who aligns himself with Cuba and starts to offer support. Um,
I think politically, it's Rubio's gonna say, I want that. I wanna be the guy that walks into Cuba first, locks
oh
up
yeah,
Florida,
I
locks
think
in.
that's why he did. I think that's why they did Venezuela. I think that was they they got rid of that support for Cuba and Venezuela. I think that's the whole reason they went into Venezuela.
Mhm.
Or they greenlit that was because Rubio wanted Cuba. He wanted to be able to walk in and do that. Um, so yeah, I think they probably do, but I don't. What comes after that? Does it become
A quagmire. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's incredibly expensive.
um is I I think that to say we take it, whatever happened, I mean, there's not much left in the for the power structure in Cuba. So I think something happens this year. Um, but how for a no war president, we sure have a lot going on. Operationally at this point, if that's the next stage, I don't know how you start I don't know how you start a fight that close, uh, or how much of a fight there'll be.
There won't be.
Would there be? It- I, yeah, I think I guess we take over. I don't even know what that looks like, Mike. I mean, ha- what do you think? What do
I
you think
think
a takeover in Cuba looks like?
I think it's gonna look like Venezuela, where we're gonna go in and there'll be there's an emerging humanitarian crisis there right now.
Hmm.
We're gonna go in, prop up the existing regime, which politically is a mistake because it's basically Castro's regime, so you're getting no political benefit out of it.
Yeah,
And you say, "Yeah, you're in control, but we're gonna start running everything." And then privatize and just give it to all your rich buddies to come in and exploit the hell out of the land. That's what they have. They don't have oil, they don't have silver, they don't have gold. They've got real estate, and it's prime real estate
yeah,
for a whole lot of purposes. And that will be of interest, and that will be what the argument will be. It also, I mean, that's where Guantanamo is, right? I mean, there's a strategic imperative too, especially as we're clearly trying to take over all of Latin America at this
yeah,
point. Like, we just rose to level 4 in Guatemala with cartel activity. Like, we're going to be starting to hit positions in Guatemala now after taking out cartel leaders in Mexico and decapitating Venezuela and moving in likely in Cuba and buying off Millet and bailing them out to the tune of a few billion, tens of billions of dollars. I don't know how much more money we can print. I don't know how much more we can spread our military assets thin. I just feel like, we're on the monopoly board and he's just kind of doesn't have any more resources, but he still wants to grab everything that's out there and thinks he can do it just off of sheer brute force. And that's just not, we're limited in that. We have enemies in the world that, by the way, are getting stronger. Russia is getting stronger because of what's happening with the oil situation in Iran. China's got a lot more leverage suddenly, a lot more. And it could be decisive in terms of global power if Iran does start settling barrels of oil in Chinese currency. Like that is a profound, maybe it's not, even if it's some BRICS currency or the euro or something, anything but the dollar enhances China considerably.
Well, China has no Trump is calling for China to come help them with the strait. There's no strategic benefit for China.
Which is China's MO, is let them fight.
Um,
Watch from the horizon. Just
if I hate to say this, so I hope
say it. Spill
nobody fucking write this down. If you want a foreign policy blueprint that, if democratized, is very successful, it's the Chinese foreign policy program. It's non-militaristic. It's all economic strategy. It is regional economic strategy and growth. Do they there's a lot of failures in it in the way that certain things are handled for sure, but it is, what they've
it's
done.
it's soft power.
It's very,
Yes.
uh,
It's everything we gutted with Doge and Musk. Yes.
it they're 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 softening their image, on the world stage, and have a lot more regional power than anyone would have predicted they would have in 2026. Um, but they were forced into it. You know, the amount of money that they have invested in, Belt and Road and changing their supply chains, and um, I think the egomania of the Trump administration, and just assuming that the status quo would always be just that the United States was the big bad wolf and that we could throw our weight around. And eventually other countries get tired of having to do that, having to deal with that, and you look for other options. And China just got tired of it. And they've been planning it for a decade.
What BRICS has been all about. They've been tired for a while.
They spent a decade preparing for the inevitability of, um, how
American
brilliant, though, how brilliant to start in the first administration and say, all right, this is, in case this ever happens again, we will be ready, and just rebuilt their entire supply chain.
because it's so predictable.
Did you see where somebody said something about, was asking, like, what are you gonna do about the loss of the marks of the United States? It's like they represent 15%. Like, we don't need them. That's dangerous. I mean, that's scary. Um,
Yeah. The whole interdependence concept of globalization is collapsing and it's not going down quietly and easily. It's people grabbing the chandeliers as Rome is burning and the barbarians are at the gate and we're the barbarians.
it's an interesting shift when you start to not good guys anymore. And I don't, someone will make the distinction that we never have been or whatever, but the idea of the illusion shattering, I think, for a good portion of the populace and the voting public especially, will be, I think, the change. I don't know that it'll be necessarily economic or whatever, but once you start to see yourself, as not in a defensible position, morally grounded, I think that will be the big change.
Well, let me pull that thread a little bit because I have never seen a position politically move as rapidly as I have seen support levels for Israel as I've seen in the last 2 years collapse. That
What
was a bedrock foundational support of our ally in the Middle East. They're net negative now. The Palestinian efforts are more positive in the American public than Israel's. That is remarkable for a guy my age anyway, right? Who that was always a central plank of American foreign policy since Truman.
Was it Nixon said that there would always be, uh, U.S. support for Israel, even though it wasn't a strategic advantage for the United States, that there would always exist? Um, I think that it is, and I think maybe part of that understanding is some of the Netanyahu, um, basis for the onslaught of military action recently, is that if there's a change in November, if the midterms change drastically and
Gotta do
you
it
now
now.
have 13% approval on the Democratic side, and I think overall underwater, right? It's what supports something like 35% nationally across the board. Yeah, the APAC money will not continue to put those people in office when the vote isn't there. Um, so I think they are seeing that that crumbling for support there, and not seeing a necessity for it. Um, they used to be Republicans were 100% on that was a guaranteed support base, and now that's split down the middle. It's
Yeah.
just so I think that they are just trying to gain ground or establish something there while they have at least administration support. But I don't think it lasts. The House picks up if Democrats pick up 30, 35 seats in the midterms, that's over. There's no, especially with the way you're seeing a progressive lean um, in a lot of these races. So yeah, I don't think that there's anything. Uh,
I think we gotta look at Netanyahu as like before October 7th, the October 7th events. Netanyahu Israel was on the verge of civil war.
yeah,
Like they just right, stacked the Supreme Court battle, thousands of people in the street wanting Bibi out, these fraud charges. No one's talking about any of that anymore. So I think that he had this imperative to kind of create this foreign policy crisis from their perspective as a matter of survival. And I don't just mean political survival in terms of winning the elections, but he was going to come out with all of the corruption in his government and what that would mean for the rest of his life. And I think that, as much as anything else, was driving this very aggressive posture and I think more so than what the midterms coming. I have never seen a collapse in something that had been so central for so long with public support. It wasn't even close. But after that, the Israeli government's response was so over the top to a horrible situation, obviously, but just so out of correlation to what happened that you saw this just collapse of American support and American public opinion. In a way, again, I've never seen anything like that. You don't see that on many issues anymore anyway, because we're so calcified, but let alone on something that was really central, basic to American foreign policy issues for 50 years, for half a century.
I I think as long as Netanyahu's alive, there will be conflict because he doesn't want to. I mean, he knows he loses an election at this point. He knows that he loses, that he probably goes to jail on corruption charges, and probably at this point, crimes against humanity. I mean, he will get
War crimes.
war crimes. And so I don't, he will have to have a state of conflict. Israel will have to be in a state of conflict and no elections and things in order for, for the rest of his life. And so I think he was probably happy to keep it in the Gaza situation, and just keep that conflict brewing and then dabble in Hezbollah. But this, I think the intensifying of the situation with Iran has just come out of sheer panic. Um,
I
the,
agree.
there was no, I can't even make sense of the the strategic advantage of the strike. Um,
The strike on Iran
yeah, like just the
for Israel or for us or for both?
for both. I mean, I, you can make all. There's plenty of arguments to be made against the Iranian, the RGC being, and so it's certainly nothing I say is in support of that. But it is to say that the actions are humanitarian in nature, that we're here to let Iran kind of, set itself free. That you can't just expect a group of protesters essentially to be able to overthrow a 40-year-old military regime. That doesn't happen. They have systems of uh of contingency in play. I mean, there will be an operational government for uh it's not some
It's not
Johnny come lately.
Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's a real institutionalized government. It's not it's like saying taking out the president of the United States and that's not even close. Like there's it's so there will be a lot of Iranian lives lost. Um and oddly, I think that the n- the people there, from what I've seen, and there's been a lot of support that's grown around the new leadership there. They don't want to be bombed by American bombs instead of being killed by the regime either. I mean, when you're having to huddle with your children in your house and hope that you know we know a, we have a better idea of where the military facilities are this time. We don't hit a school. Like, that's absurd. Like, we are. Um, there's no part of it that feels humanitarian to me, or that sort of argument can be made. Um, so what 1 million people died in Iraq. You know, Iraqi. In the broader scope between that and Afghanistan, the war on terror, we lost 40,000. Um, or not 40,000. We've lost, thousands of troops in the 20-year war on terror. Um, Millions died in the Middle East. I mean, why do we want to continue that? Like, that doesn't feel even remotely humanitarian.
After we just got out and ended it, and Trump ran on that, you know? I just it's there's no I don't know. And like I said, I'm struggling. Like, I read the polls, and the polling is saying that it's still the economy by a wide measure as it should be, but there's just this pervasive sense that everything is so reordering in a chaotic way. This isn't by design. It's not like there's a cohesive policy to say, going to the, having a statement made from the president in the White House and having him make the case to the American people of why we're going to go in and spend $1 billion a day in the Middle East and put troops on the ground and destabilize the dollar. Like, make the case, dude. Make the case. He's clearly erratic. He's clearly not mentally there. And, the numbers, like I said, he is in a very low range historically for Donald Trump, but that MAGA base is still intact.
Yeah,
They're not leaving in a huge way. It's a cult. There's no question about that. There's nothing cohesive about this. The only thing is he's just sort of this messianic figure to these people that he can do no wrong, even though he's clearly not, all of his faculties aren't there, which is often the case with cult figures. That's how
yeah.
you become one, by the way. Becoming a cult figure is not normal mental health behavior.
Yeah.
So what are you writing on right now? What are you thinking about?
So a lot of it is going to be around. I've started kind of breaking down what I needed to write over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and a lot of it is going to be the sentiment that is happening with the war. I started outlining a piece today, oddly enough, about how people had this. It looks like people have this idea that it's going to be they still haven't grappled with the idea that it's gonna be a long-term war, that it's going to be an 8 or 10-year process. I think if it was, it would be the number 1 polling topic, and it wouldn't be affordability and cost of living. But it is a thing that drives that I it drives affordability even further because it's gonna affect the cost of living in such a huge way that it will keep probably that at the forefront. But as this develops and as we get closer into the summer and this is still going on, then it becomes that optic starts to show up that this is a longer play that we are not getting out of this anytime soon. And of course, people like you and I, Mike, that live in this sort of, pool of just constant information, and we study and read this stuff. It's very apparent to us, but I think to the general public, it hasn't clicked yet that there is no exit strategy. And I don't even mean one that makes sense. I mean, there's none at all. Like they're not intending. They have no intention of getting out.
They can't even make up an excuse. I don't know if they're necessarily trying, but you're getting a different message every time from this White House. And that's because there isn't even an attempt to say, let's just go say this, guys. Like they're not even trying to come up with a common thematic. It's just, we're going to do what we're going to do. And they know. I mean, I think even Trump knows that he bit off more than he could chew. He's asking China for help. He's asking Europe for help. And everyone's telling him no. Like he knows.
Um, and maybe maybe their incompetence may win this time. Maybe that is the thing that finally, like, we don't have a way out of this. Like, we haven't put boots on the ground yet. Let's not put boots on the ground. Like, let's just say we won and call it. Um, but again, I think
But
that
he's
you leave
never
that
done.
vacuum.
He's
They're not
never
going to
done
do
that.
it. But even if they do, I mean, you've already established an enemy for a generation.
Another. Yes.
Um, so it Jesus, I don't know. It's awful.
Yeah,
It's so
it's
bad.
awful. Yeah, it's like COVID, his response to COVID, right? He couldn't acknowledge that it was a real thing and it was a hoax and it'll be done by Easter. And then, suddenly then he's expediting the COVID vaccines and he finally has something to be victorious about. And he mentions it a couple times, but he's so preconditioned the mob to be anti-vaccine that he starts getting blowback and then he doubles back off of that. It's like even when you have a policy success, you've lied so much, you can't even stand on that because you've so conditioned your people to believe your lies. And there's something about people who are willfully ignorant is they make an unspoken pact with you. I will be dumb for you. I will protect you to the nth degree, but just keep going forward because once you back off, then I have to acknowledge to myself and to people in my family and my community that I am the idiot that you all think I am. That's what's going on. That's got to be a big part of what's happening in MAGA. It has to.
Do you think that there's any way for this administration to survive another 3 years?
Yeah. I mean, not without a lot of turmoil. and stress and fear. But yeah, I mean, look, he has, yes, because look, like a 25th Amendment play or an impeachment hearing or, any of our normal processes, I think they have failed us. And they failed us because the idea of power and the balance of power assumes that people are pursuing rational self-interest.
Sure.
And that's not what's happening right now. These people are not operating in their own best interests, and they've forsaken that. And so once the whole foundational premise of it is gone, we're in a brave new world, and that's what we're operating in. So unless look, the last guardrail is the people taking to the streets. Yes, the crowds are getting bigger, but they're not nearly as big enough that they need to be
Right.
to get to the point where we're going to drive this man from office. And by the way, he's not going to go peacefully if it gets to that point. He's not going to go quietly. He's not going to get on a plane and sneak out and go to Moscow. That's not going to happen, guys. If it gets to that, it will be bad.
You don't think that there's, I mean, you obviously don't necessarily think that. Do you think there is any credence at all to the idea that people below him would say this has to?
Now, I mean, kind of. I mean, that's sort of what saved us last time. There were enough of those,
Mhm.
but um, there's far less now.
Yeah.
And everybody knows the rules of the game. Everybody knows that what happened last time, they're all walking into it, eyes wide open, and they know that they are there precisely for that situation, which means no matter what, you don't blink. You don't turn on Trump.
Right.
You don't. And so that's why I think this moment is far more precarious. But like I said, I also history is always replete with these stories of things turning in the right direction when it just takes one. As Biden said, it doesn't take a majority, it just takes enough. You just gotta have
Right.
enough. Just have to have enough at the right time. Sometimes it's Mike Pence doing the right thing in the basement of the Capitol. Sometimes it's, somebody, 8 Republican political consultants standing up to take him on during the campaign. Sometimes it's enough of whatever. And the shameful part is the Republican Party has gotten worse. The enablers at the top have gotten worse. There are breaks. You saw Rand Paul coming after Mark Wayne Mullen today.
Yeah.
I mean, overtly breaking. You did see the Marjorie Taylor Greene URC members openly talking about this is bad policy. You are seeing Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly in the right wing manosphere saying this is bullshit. This is enough. This is done. But is it meaningfully cracking the MAGA base? Maybe 2 to 3 points, not nearly enough of a fissure when you have convinced millions of people to be willful, ignorant fools for you. As Voltaire said, if you can convince people to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities.
Right.
And they are willing to destroy this country in the name of Donald Trump. And I don't say that to frighten people, but we have to be very sober about what we're looking at and understand that there's going to have to be a massive, massive, massive pushback swelling up to oppose this guy. And it's going to have to, what it will require is not Republicans turning. It will be the intensity of independents and Democrats saying no more. And we're there politically. We're there enough to show up at the ballot in disproportionate numbers. We're there, I think, in terms of the lulling, a bottoming out of public opinion to saying we're not going back with this stuff anymore. That doesn't mean that folks are ready to take to the streets and recapture our institutions in a way that I think is going to be required if these guys resorts to what they do, which
Sure.
is which is shoot people in the face.
Do you think there's, gosh, what's the best way to frame this? That there is enough, consolidation that's happening, between independents and Democrats, and then having, um, the senators and the congresspeople that have broken and have voted, what do you think that there is enough of that that turns away some of the Atlantic published an article recently that talked about the new Republican voter is a more sporadic voter, that it is, they're voting for Trump. They're not even really voting for MAGA anymore, like, nobody's wearing GOP T-shirts, like, it's all MAGA and Trump shit, so it's do you think that once Trump is out of the picture, like, that it's not a Trump game anymore, that a good portion of that voter base just stops voting? It's not that the support goes away, but that there's less, um, enthusiasm in the vote itself.
You mean in a post-Trump era?
Yeah. Like, with the midterms, he's not on the ballot in the midterms. Are you gonna
Oh,
get
yeah,
the same
yeah,
support in the
yeah,
midterms?
you're gonna have a lower GOP turnout, specifically compared to the Democrats. I think it's gonna be a very high turnout election.
Yeah.
Most modelers aren't making that prediction yet. I am. Now, we did see, Illinois, I don't know what the turnout rate was there, but, I mean, Texas obviously off the charts. You're gonna see very big turnout, and that's what's gonna be, um you're not just gonna see very high turnout amongst Democrats, which you absolutely will. You're gonna see very high turnout amongst independents who don't normally show up in primaries, and you will see a lower rate of turnout amongst Republicans. It doesn't mean it will be negative from where it's been in the past, although it might be, but it's certainly not gonna be keeping pace. The differential will be huge, kinda like what we saw in Texas. That is what is characterizing the mood of the electorate right now. And again, I wanna really stress, this is important from somebody who does polls for a living. None of the pollsters, none of them, look at how many were wrong in Texas. None of the pollsters are capturing the intensity on the Democratic side of the aisle right now.
Mhm.
And that's screwing up everybody's weighting. And it's not by 1 or 2 points, it's by like double digits
Yeah.
wrong. And when you have that kind of a scenario, you have to win and win big. But it's also why I was saying being cautionary to Democrats with this mid-decade redistricting stuff. You're looking at a D plus 10 environment, which means a Democrat plus 10% advantage. That's extraordinary. And that might be conservative. It might be a Democrat plus 12 environment.
Right.
And if that happens, you're looking at a pickup of potentially 30 seats in a country where a 12-seat pickup would be massive because we're so gerrymandered and locked down. So you should get to a dozen seats with just with your, walking down the street. If you get up to 30, you're gonna have a real big pushback if Trump does try to militarize elections and create a national crisis and do what there is some lining up to do in some of these states. Now, let me say this too, because I've always been a skeptic about the midterm election thing. You are hearing some rumblings from the legal people in the White House talking about coming in and checking stuff out and looking at rolls. To do this in a national way, we're heading into mid-March. What are we in? Mid to late March?
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of time to execute that kind of a strategy. It's not easy to do. You don't just decide at the flip of a switch, we're going to nationalize elections, send the military to all 50 states, lock down all the ballots. Like, that's not how that happens. There aren't enough people, by the way. If you added ICE and the military and the National Guard, you're at like maybe 10% of polling places.
Yeah.
You can't just lock down the country. So, I don't know what is envisioned for this or how they plan, and I do listen with a keen ear. Tulsi Gabbard at the electoral offices in Georgia scares the crap out of me because there's nothing but a really bad reason for her to be there, whatever it is. And I'm not saying they can't do it, but I'm saying as somebody who has done this for 35 years and knows the voting and the vote counting processing system extremely well, I don't know how they do it.
I don't, I th I don't think there's a way they can do it. I think they can. I think that they are confident that they have that sort of power, but I think more and more Trump and some of those guys are learning that it's not a business. It's not you may be the leader of the country, but you're not in charge without impunity. I mean, you don't just get to, uh, you can't federalize an election on a whim.
You
Uh,
can't. It's like occupying Iran with ground troops. Good luck.
yeah,
It's a country of
yeah,
92 million people. It's like
yeah.
you can't do that. It's just not possible. And
Uh,
I people will say the SAVE Act. No. Look, here's the irony of the SAVE Act. I was actually talking to a Fox reporter. I don't usually pick up the phone when Fox reporters call, but I knew it was about the SAVE Act because there was all this hullabaloo about it. The SAVE Act will hurt Republican voters more than Democratic voters. Okay?
Easily, yeah.
So, like, I'm not justifying it. I think it's terrible policy. I don't think we should pass it at all. But the idea that this is somehow going to disenfranchise the people that's going to disenfranchise demographically is going to hurt Republicans more than it's going to hurt Democrats. The
You
SAVE Act, let me say this again, just to be clear. If the SAVE Act were to pass, it's going to hurt the Republican voter base more than the Democratic voter base. That's just a fact.
I think that understanding I think there are probably enough senators who understand that, and it's why
Moving.
it's not moving.
And
Like,
it's not gonna.
look, uh, who they dude said that we're gonna look at it again, but we know there's gonna be I mean, it's gonna get filibustered. It's not gonna get the support from the Republican members of the Senate. It's just that they know that it hurts the voting base, because uh, they don't have that consistent money, consistent voter, uh, base anymore. That just doesn't exist. They have the NASCAR crowd.
And the NASCAR crowd doesn't have passports.
Nope. Um, it's and also they're not gonna spend an awful lot. They're there for they want the T-shirts and the rallies and the fun part of it. They're not gonna go out of their way to make sure that they can go vote because that the voting is not required. You can be just as Trumpy without him being in office. I mean, it's great when he wins, but I mean, the identity doesn't go away, uh, with an election loss.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and so when this Fox reporter, called, he literally called him and was saying, "I am hearing this from Republican data analysts," and I was like, "They are exactly right.
yeah.
This is gonna hurt the Republican voters more than it's gonna hurt Democratic voters." I'm not saying do it for that reason. I think it's bad public policy. I don't think you should be disenfranchising everybody. But this idea that it's all gonna hurt, people of color and, recently migrated, I'm like, first of all, take a look at the voter shifts that have been happening.
Yeah.
Democrats think that that's their voter base. It's not quantifiably, one. But two, the education divide that is characterizing the American body politic means those with a college degree are rapidly becoming more Democrat. People of color have been moving towards the Republican Party in the opposite direction, non college educated. People are moving towards the Republican Party at a faster direction than college educated white people are moving to the Democratic Party. If you just look at the math over the the demographic math over the last decade, it's very clear who's going to be hurt by this.
Mm.
It's very clear, and it's not the Democrats. Okay.
And amazingly, the why do you think that the administration, like, why Trump and those guys don't is it just that nobody wants to give him bad news? Like, nobody
Yeah.
wants to say, "Hey, like,
Yeah.
we should do this," like
Which is why Thune is standing up and taking the grenade. And he's like, he knows, they all know. These are not dumb guys. These Republican
right,
operatives all know. They're like, but who's going to go in and say? Because he's convinced it's illegals, still in elections. Otherwise, I would have won California. He's an idiot. And no one will tell the idiot that he's got no clothes. And
did
that's literally what it is. But that's why Thune is going to have to take the grenade to protect his majority or try to.
did you I think that this war will cost, will cost a couple of Senate seats for Republicans.
Yeah, very good
Um,
chance.
I think that's a flip, maybe that wasn't anticipated 2 months ago, is the Senate seat changeover. Um,
There's nothing going breaking in their direction, dude. Nothing. Nothing. The economy, foreign policy, even on the issue where they're underwater, but still highest polling issue is border security and immigration. Nobody views it as a problem anymore because it's not a problem. So, it's like number 15 on an issue of 10, top 10 issues for voters. So, congratulations. You're viewed as tough on the border. Nobody thinks that that's a priority and where you should be focusing your energy. And if you do, you've already got those people.
yeah, that that's the real I don't know who they're even messaging to anymore.
No,
Or
and
maybe they're not messaging anymore. Maybe it's
but that's
just
but that's where the Save Act stuff comes from. That's what feeds it all. Is
yes.
let's stop illegal aliens from voting, right? Let's stop non-white people from voting, and it's like
Did
that's
you see the Did you see the Heritage Foundation report on that?
no. What did that say?
Uh, the Heritage Foundation did a study the last 40 years of American elections, and they found 77 instances of illegal immigrants voting or attempting to vote in the last 40 years. 77 occurrences. And that's from the Heritage Foundation. That's not
That's the right wing think tank.
um so 77 out of 40 years um is and this is your whole thing? Like this is
That's what you got. We should add up how many people cast ballots in those 40 years,
more.
and I guarantee you're like 1,000 times more likely to be struck by lightning hopscotching down the street at midnight than have these occurrences develop.
And again, these aren't even people that are actually voting. These are attempts to register or
Yeah,
uh I mean
it's a boogeyman.
77 over 40 years. That's
It's nothing. I
it's
mean, just in terms of
incredible.
math, it's like 1/2 of 1,000th of 1% of votes cast.
I don't even know how many zeros would be, on that. Like, that's an incredibly low, it's a non-consequential I the the likelihood of somebody voting twice is higher.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
it's
I
crazy.
mean, someone does need to run the math on that. We gotta talk and get somebody to come up with talking points on that because when Heritage is putting that out, they're telling on themselves.
Oh, they
They're s
didn't put it out. They just that report became available. Somebody
Oh,
went and scoped it up, so it
oh,
wasn't,
perfect, perfect.
they aren't
Even
proud
better.
of finding that information. Uh, so that's probably why that report was never, it's made public because it was public funds that funded the research, but it's not something they're proud of for sure.
And didn't want out there or
Yeah.
known. All the more reason to have somebody run some math behind it. Because you will find, for example, people who are, committing voter fraud, which is usually a Republican somewhere voting 2, 3, 4 times. There's guaranteed there's more instances of that than this.
Well, and then Elon Musk having the pre-made ballots.
Yeah, I mean,
Crazy.
nonsense. Yeah. Uh,
Um, well, I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
yeah, I'm gonna have you on 8 AM on Politicology. Guys, Robert has agreed to be, my guest on Politicology for those of you that listen to the podcast, one of the country's larger podcasts. I'll shoot you some notes on kind of what we wanna talk about, but I want it to
Okay.
be just a little bit more like, we usually talk about issues of the day, but I think it would be really fascinating is kinda introduce you a little bit more to that audience, Robert. It's a
Yeah,
very thoughtful audience, and I think that you'll get a real kick out of it, and it'll just be you and I kinda going back and forth together.
that'll be great. Looking forward to it. I will be in Pennsylvania when we have that talk, so,
You're
uh,
all over the place, man. Appreciate
probably I landed at 9:30 in the morning, so I've got plenty of time to get into the, uh I booked, one of the private rooms in the American Club, so
Oh, perfect.
I'm just gonna run in there, so I won't be late or,
I
as I
appreciate
tend to
that.
be sometimes.
Yeah.
So, when I
That's all
booked a
right. We
room, I'll
love
be
you for
ready to
that.
go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
All right, buddy. Have a great night. Travel safely, and I'll talk to you in the morning.
thanks, Mike. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.